The NBA is back. Welcome to the NBA Slate Starter podcast. I am Rayen Patnaik. Excited to be bringing this podcast to you, brought to you by Awesemo.com. This podcast will be an overview, a quick aerial approach of tonight's slate. This will be brought to you every night, and I'm very excited to be joined by one of my closest friends in the DFS circuit, Eric Lindquist, going by the username of elindy4. You might have caught one of his articles on the site. Eric, how are you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing great. It's nice to have hoops back. You know, it's been a long 2 months, just over 2 months, but it's fun to be back going and talking NBA with my guy. Can't believe we get a chance to do this. This is incredible.
I know, I'm very excited to have you on board. I mean, it's exactly been 71 days since the Lakers were named champions of the NBA, and they're back at it later today playing the Clippers. But very excited to be just talking about DFS and whatnot. A quick question for you before we go into NBA DFS and what a beast of its own right it is. Who do you think will be in the finals come July?
Well, not to put me on the spot right away or anything, but the Milwaukee Bucks are a team that I got my eye on. I think this Drew Holiday pickup is much bigger than anybody's really been playing up. I feel like they're kind of the untalked about team for being the perennial Eastern Conference 1 seed. We keep talking about Philly and all the changes there with Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey, and we're talking about the Heat and how unbelievable it was, even though they were a 5 seed running the table like they did. I don't know. Something about Giannis being secure there now and not having that over their head and having Drew Holiday that's a huge addition. So how about yourself? What are you thinking?
I know the Lakers and Bucks are the two most favorite teams to come out of their respective conferences. I like the following two teams in the Nets and the Clippers right now. I'd love to see them go head to head in the finals, and maybe we don't get a pandemic peace sighting come 2021 in Paul George. So, but honestly, I would love to see the Sixers play the Nuggets in the finals. That I'd be rooting for those two
Wait,
teams.
You like Denver a little bit?
Just a little bit. I've been on their bandwagon for quite some time now, and to see how they performed last year's playoffs was amazing. Not to only come back from one, but two 3-1 deficits. Now, going into this podcast, we're excited to bring this to you. It's a little rebrand of what you guys might have heard, the early bird in previous years. This year, we're going to change things up a little bit. We're going to be going position by position, just a quick aerial approach of what the slate looks like to us at our own first glance, a quick first look on it, and just highlight some plays that stand out to us, what injuries might be happening that we can take advantage of in player minutes and rotations, and additionally, where the pricing mistakes in pricing. There's always going to be some sort of edge right away in trying to give us our own first outlook at it. Obviously, things change over day. NBA news is everything. And speaking of NBA news, Eric, what do you think stands out in NBA DFS compared to MLB DFS and NFL DFS?
Well, first of all, I think the big thing that you're going to hear constantly and you're going to hear on our website constantly is just variance. Like the variance that you have in NFL and in baseball, they're just two things that, are a little bit more unpredictable. We don't have like a perfect formula the way that we kind of do for gauging NBA players. Number of minutes multiplied by fantasy point expectation generally gets you a median projection of what we're looking for the specific player that we're targeting or not targeting. Over a sample size, as we go along, we'll start seeing things because like Steph Curry is somebody without Klay Thompson who's going to see a big boost to his usage and specifically to his fantasy points per minute. And once we get enough of a sample size, we're going to be able to look back at that and know kind of what to expect if he's going to play 35, 36 minutes, exactly what his fantasy output should look like.
Now, I completely agree with you. And I think one of the most important things is just monitoring news throughout the day, because news is pretty much can make or break your day. And taking advantage of news in NBA, because right away there will be new minutes to be spread across to new players, and being on top of those players, if they're good plays, will lead you to being profitable on more nights than not. Anything else on NBA DFS before we dive right into this 2-game slate?
Let's get going, man. I'm excited.
Yes, and the 2 games are phenomenal games, studs across the board. Warriors are taking on the Nets, followed by the Lakers taking on the Clippers in the Battle of LA. So we'll go start off position by position. We'll take a look at the point guard position on DraftKings, FanDuel, and Yahoo are the three sites that we'll be trying to focus on, talking about the prices across the board. On DraftKings, LeBron James, most recently named Finals MVP, 9.6K on DraftKings, and he's small forward only on FanDuel, while on Yahoo, he's 45, 40, $49 at the point guard position. Talk to me about LeBron James and what do you think load management is going to look like for him this year? And what's your outlook on this game, specifically teaming up with Anthony Davis and playing the Clippers?
Yeah, LeBron James is a great play. You don't need any of us to tell you that. He's 9,600 on DraftKings. What is he over on FanDuel right now? 11,000. That's still, within the realm, and he's going to be popular. It's hard to look at any faults there, but one thing to keep in mind is the short layoff. We had 2 months, just over 2 months, you said 71 days between the NBA Finals, Game 6 of that NBA Finals, and opening day, NBA. So you got to expect the Lakers maybe to monitor him a little bit more. They have Kuzma that they just re-signed, or gave an extension to, excuse me. And they've got a bunch of other guys, Anthony Davis specifically, who can eat up a lot of that share. Eat up a lot of the production and kind of let LeBron coast a little bit in this regular season. So I'm not saying that he's going to come out of the gate slow, but what are you kind of expecting for him?
LeBron is always, especially on DraftKings, where you can pick up the triple double bonus and whatnot. It's just there's a ton of other good studs that we're going to get into when we go into some other positions, and value right now doesn't look that great. It'll be interesting to see what LeBron James comes in at ownership compared to Anthony Davis. I think he'll be garner a lot more ownership just because he's coming in cheaper, and LeBron James just being the brand name he is for casual fans on the opening night, where there's a couple million makers that are there on DraftKings, and then I think that FanDuel has their million as well. So it's going to be interesting what ownership comes in at. Make sure to take a look at our ownership projections throughout the day. We'll talk about a special promo later in the podcast. But right now, I am always someone to always go to Anthony Davis over LeBron James. But at that price tag, you can't really go wrong there. Let's talk about Kyrie Irving and Steph Curry in a matchup against each other. Kyrie's coming in at 8,500 and Steph is at 9,300 on DraftKings, while on FanDuel they're coming in at Curry's coming at 8.7 and Kyrie's at 9K. What's your outlook on that matchup? And we haven't seen these guys play in quite some time. Curry did play in a few games before the COVID-19 shutdown for the regular season for teams that didn't make the playoffs. And while Kyrie was ruled out of the bubble with his injury, what's your take on this matchup? And is there a specific player that you prefer in spending up that salary for?
Well, I'm ecstatic, first of all, because Steph Curry, no matter your feelings about him, no matter how he chooses mouth guard, he's a pretty fun basketball player to watch. He's pretty unbelievable, some of the things that he can get done on a basketball floor. And without Klay Thompson, you're going to see a guy who's going to be chucking it as much as you thought he was chucking it in 2018. I mean, it's going to come in full force in 2020. He's going to come out of the gate hot. He's had a lot of time. It looked like he was about to come back when the season shut down in March. They were kind of like, I mean, it wasn't even something that they were worried about making the playoffs at that point. But he's somebody that I'm pretty darn excited to see from a fantasy outlook going forward. And then Kyrie, the guy's Kyrie, can bust a crazy amount of upside. We saw right towards the tail end in February. He's somebody who put up 60, 70-point fantasy games multiple times before it was the Karis LeVert show in the bubble. So I'm excited to see kind of how these two match up and basically see just how they fit into both of these new teams. Kyrie has more resistance than Kevin Durant, so that definitely has to be accounted for.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. It's going to be fun watching those two team up together. Obviously, off the court, they're both their own enigma in their own right. Speaking of enigmas, shout out to him, Kyrie, and his Sage. I want to see that happen every night. And like,
that makes one of us.
I want Kyrie to be Kyrie.
Yeah.
I want Kyrie to be Kyrie, and if Sage is what's going to make him great, I want to see the Sage always being brought around the arena.
Oh man.
But Steph Curry is someone we're going to see without Klay Thompson, and obviously no Draymond Green tomorrow. he's going to be their lead dog this whole season. I think Steph Curry's going to put up some monster numbers. Maybe now without his couple other assassins with him, maybe defenses focus on him quite a bit more. Maybe he struggles a little bit. I don't see a box and one coming for Steph Curry tomorrow, but maybe
Well,
defenses
maybe. I
start
mean,
doing that
considering
to him.
Draymond's sitting out, you got to expect the backpack shooter to, he would have been out there going 2 for 11 from three. So that's a little bit extra production for him, I got to assume. So,
Yeah, rounding out the point guard position on DraftKings, you got Dinwiddie, Schroeder, and Lou Williams. Schroeder and Lou Williams have multi-position eligibility. Lou Williams is someone who I'm interested to see what his role looks like. Without Montrezl Harrell this time, obviously they were quite the dynamic duo off the bench. And Dinwiddie is someone who I just can't go to playing alongside with KD and Kyrie. I just don't think that upside is going to be there this year around. He's priced up at 6K. I'm hesitant. I'm willing to, if you were to give me an option of 6K below, I'm looking at Lou Will on both sites on FanDuel. Dinwiddie is not a point guard on FanDuel, while Patrick Beverly and Wanamaker come in at some cheaper options, and Alex Caruso. Well, talk to me about your final thoughts on the point guard position before we go into shooting guard.
you got to expect those top two are going to soak up so much ownership, especially on FanDuel, where you're trying to target raw points. You've got 9K Kyrie, you've got 8.7K Steph Curry. It feels like an easy spot where there's just such a stark drop off after those two. So if you can find some kind of value over on FanDuel, Patrick Beverly's somebody who sticks out at 4,200 for me, specifically because he's somebody who can accumulate stats in a multitude of ways that aren't scoring the basketball. And that can be something that comes in handy on FanDuel, where scoring is 3 points for every block and every steal. So he's somebody that I think over there makes a lot of sense. He provides a little bit of value too at 4,400 on DK, but you don't necessarily have to go there as much. But on FanDuel, I'm definitely going to have some shares.
Yeah, and onto the shooting guard position we go. And leading the shooting guard position is Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on DraftKings, priced at 9.1K and 7.8K. On FanDuel, Paul George and Andrew Wiggins lead that position at 7.6 and 6.6 respectively. Andrew Wiggins has shooting guard eligibility on DraftKings. I'm more excited to play Paul George this year. I think there's been quite the negativity.
He takes a
around
bad
his
rap. Let's be serious. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Especially him saying that Doc used him like JJ Redick, and Doc said Ty Lue was sitting right next to me all year. He's going to be used like JJ Redick again. So, but at that price tag, $1,300 in Kawhi Leonard, there's no reason on a 2-game slate. There's a chance that Paul George cannot easily outscore Kawhi Leonard. I do prefer Kawhi straight up right now by raw points, but it's not all that different. Looking at it just at a first look for me, I like Paul George. I want to be ahead on Paul George before that price tag goes up. I think he's going to show out. He got his contract extension. I think he'll prove people wrong. I mean, he finished third in MVP voting in his final years of OKC. Talk to me about Kawhi and Paul George and this Clipper tandem.
For all the reasons that you said, yeah, Paul George takes a bad rap, but we're also getting a big discount, and that 7,800 difference on DraftKings as opposed to going 9,100 with Kawhi. Those savings come in handy, especially if you're trying to put together some kind of a game stack with Anthony Davis, LeBron James. Tagging those two together and getting Kawhi is difficult. Putting those three up top, it's a lot easier to go down to Paul George, get a little bit of savings, and improve on a spot there. Over on FanDuel, Paul George is 7,600, Kawhi is 9,500, but Kawhi plays small forward where you've got LeBron, Kawhi, and then there's just such another stark drop-off. And that's kind of the theme of point guard, shooting guard. You've got Paul George, and then Andrew Wiggins is somebody that's going to be an unknown. We don't necessarily know what his usage is going to look like, paired up with Steph. And then, everybody else down there, there's a lot of shooting guards that I have some interest in taking some punts on. So, I think Paul George fits the build a little bit better there. On DraftKings, where I can get the savings and I get multiple position eligibility on some other guys, and on FanDuel I'm able to pay up at a position that I think is more difficult to hit at small forward and just taking the two guys up top.
Yeah, talking about some other options in the shooting guard position, Dennis Schroeder and Luke Kennard and Spencer Dinwiddie are all shooting guard positions. Kennard just got a 4-year,
Kennard
64
got paid.
million.
Yep.
Kennard definitely did get the bag, and there's some former Clipper players that had something to say about it on Twitter. We'll talk about Montrezl Harrell specifically when we get to the center position, but outside of Kennard and uh, Karis LeVert is 6'5" on DraftKings. That's way too expensive for my liking, especially playing alongside with Kyrie and KD. Like same thing I said for Dinwiddie.
Mm-hmm.
Some other players that are caught some buzz this preseason, specifically in Taylor Horton Tucker, priced all the way down at 3,500. He's played really, really well, and I'd be shocked if he doesn't have some sort of rotational run to see how he does this year, especially early on. Maybe just to like backload, be a little easier on the minutes of some of the players who played quite a bit in the bubble leading to that championship run. But who are the scrubs in the shooting guard position? And feel free to lead off the small forward position.
Yeah, Luke Kennard is somebody that you don't pay 4 years, 64 million for unless you're pretty interested in their skill set. So I think the minutes we saw that were a little bit depressed in the preseason might have been not load management, not anything like that. We're just getting going, but just kind of making sure that they bought the goods that they liked. And, he's going to come out, and you got to expect that that's a definite minutes boost compared to like the 20 to 22 minutes we saw in the preseason. I think 22 is last preseason game. So I'm excited about Luke Kennard, probably more than the public is going to be. And then Taylor Horton Tucker, Iowa State's finest. So as an alumni, I can't speak any slander against them. So I'm pretty excited about him too. 3,500 on DraftKings and 3,500 at the flat min on for shooting guard on FanDuel. Both make a lot of sense. So if you had to pick one guy down in that range, do you have any interest? Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Damian Lee, anybody else that you're kind of thinking and taking some shots on?
It's pretty ugly down there, but someone is you're gonna have to play someone to get in an extra stud. It'll be interesting which one of those come out on top, and I think that'll be a key differentiator to get on top of the leaderboard. Right now, safe to say I have any confidence in any of them. I'm probably going to lean with someone who's going to get the most minutes, and I think KCP will get most of those minutes. I think he's the one that I feel most confident in getting minutes, and that's where my confidence is going to lie. Outside of that, that position is pretty ugly. Onto the small forward position we go. Led by LeBron, who has eligibility there. Kelly Oubre is someone who is joining this new Warriors squad. Tsunami Poppy does bring a different level of swagger to this team. Great defender. I really enjoy watching him play defense. He's priced all the way up at 6,700. He doesn't just make for a fine build. He doesn't come in at a good value, but at that price tag, I'm going to have, I guess, some interest because I do prefer him to Wiggins just because he's cheaper by $300 right now. There's going to be another Warrior that I need to be interested in this matchup against the Nets. But the small forward position is pretty bad. Joe Harris doesn't really stand out to me. He doesn't pick up much peripherals. And on FanDuel, Nick Batum is all the way at the minimum at 3,500. And Kent Bazemore is 3,600.
We're going digging with that one, yeah.
Maybe we could consider. Talk to me about these small forward scrubs and the rest of the small forward position on DraftKings.
Well, first of all, LeBron is 9,600, and he fills small forward for you just fine. If you're playing cash games, if you're doing something of that nature, that's the easy plug-and-play spot for him. But going down the line, you've got Kawhi, who can also do the same thing there. And if you're looking to game stack up that first Golden State-Brooklyn game, which is a 231 total, 231, 232, you've got to basically pick between Wiggins and Oubre in a lot of those lineups, especially if you're going to try to jam in one of the studs who's going to go off in the late night hammer. So Oubre is definitely my lean as well. He's somebody who has a lot more unknowns wrapped around him. We kind of know who Wiggins is. We know that he's not going to eat up a bunch of that usage with Steph there now as well. Oubre just kind of feels like a little bit more of a wild card, but somebody you can definitely spike more of an upside, in my opinion. Kyle Kuzma sitting there at 5,500. Can I interest you in some Kuzma on DraftKings?
Well, Kyle Kuzma, one of the greatest nicknames I heard is by our colleague in Greg Ehrenberg. He calls Kyle Kuzma West Coast Kevin Knox, and I don't think he could have said it any more better than that. So that's my opinion on Kyle Kuzma.
It's
He
fair.
did pick
It's
up an
fair.
interesting contract extension, which I think is $40 million too much. I may be hitting on Kuzma a little too much, but at 5,500, yes, in GPPs where there's such a top heavy structure, Kuzma has an upside in him if he's going to get minutes. LeBron's been quote tweeting saying Kuzma's going to shock some people. A lot of people within the Lakers organization do believe in Kuzma if they're giving him that extension. I've always thought he was someone that was going to get traded. That price tag makes things tough. He's not all that great in value, and maybe he gets some extra minutes based off rotation and how things have looked for him with his contract extension. I'm always hesitant to roster Kyle Kuzma. I'm not the biggest fan of him. And on small forward, where you need to roster two positions at small forward, it's tough to go without James and Kawhi.
Yep.
And outside of that, Kent Bazemore is someone who's back in Golden State. Maybe he does well there.
Yeah, and I
But I
guess
think we should talk about the power.
yeah, but first Joe Harris too. He's going to be somebody who comes in pretty popular. Looking at our first run of ownership, which Awesemo has the most ridiculously unbelievable ownership projections in the entire industry. Joe Harris comes in at 37.4%, and again, this is a very early run of these projections, and you're going to want to be refreshing all the way up to lock. But that's a pretty hefty number for him. So sitting down there at 4,800, I think he'll garner some popularity, and he'll fit in a lot of my builds too. Somebody who can spike an upside, just hit 6-7 threes in a big outing. So
Yeah, and as you mentioned, our ownership projections. I want to talk about our promotion that we're running. It is by far the best promotion you'll see in the NBA DFS industry going on right now. All you can get for just $1 is you can get access to all our Awesemo NBA product. You can get access to our Boom Bust tool, the ownership projections, player rankings, player projections, our coveted lineup builder, which is great for people who are building 1 to 3 lineups. Really can help you build a unique lineup with some powerful upside using Alex's inbuilt tools. And also, there's some Alex's game plan video where he gives you kind of much like a private session about what's going through his mind, how to attack the slate, and so many more new tools that are in the works that Alex is working on. So make sure to use our promo code Caruso, Caruso, when you check out. You'll get access to Awesemo NBA till December 29th. Do not miss out on this. This is an absolute steal on starting right away. There's 2 million makers. Christmas Day has some massive slates. Have some fun with the product, and we hope that you stick around for the long haul. And onto the power forward position we go. Kevin Durant, priced at 9.8 on DraftKings, and Anthony Davis priced at 10K. I love them both. I can't. It's really hard for me to say I would be fading either one of them. I'm a big fan of both players in the basketball sense, and I love rostering them in DFS. Anthony Davis is probably a player who gets a ton of hate for going to the locker room. Fingers crossed we don't get to see much of that this year, but you never know. It's Anthony Davis. KD coming off a Achilles injury. It's been a while. Last time we saw him was in June of 2018. Now in Brooklyn, priced at 9.8. Talk to me a bit about this power forward position on DraftKings and FanDuel.
So similar to what we had at small forward, where you had LeBron and Kawhi, you go over to power forward, you have Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant. Now, Kevin Durant on FanDuel is $2,100 cheaper than Anthony Davis. I think the ownership is probably going to reflect that fact because Kevin Durant, if we get any semblance of who he is $1,500 underpriced. You go over to DraftKings, you pretty much can do whatever you want in terms of being able to fit both of them in. We'll talk a little bit about some of this power forward value that'll help you on this slate. But I think a popular build will definitely involve Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, LeBron James. There's a way to make all three of those work, or maybe Paul George with those two power forwards. But FanDuel is really where you see the crazy price discrepancy between the two. Do you want to talk a little bit about Eric Pascal, who's going to probably be the highest owned player on the slate, maybe on both sites?
Eric Pascal is someone who I expect to pick up quite a bit of minutes. I mean, no Draymond Green tomorrow, so there's going to be minutes to be spread around. I'm always hesitant in the Warriors front court rotation. What Steve Kerr is going to do? He's hinted at their second overall pick, James Wiseman's going to play there, so he's going to get some run. I
And that's
think
the guy that I
Wiseman
really
is
want to go
set.
to. I mean, one thing you got to pay attention to in early season NBA DFS, you got to be able to look at some of these rookies that are coming in, or how many question marks. I mean, we have more question marks around this season and around what it's going to look like between COVID, between short rest, between teams that haven't played since March, that weren't in the bubble, that are going to be coming in with rotations like the Timberwolves have, where you just have a plethora of guards and small forwards that you don't really know how those minutes are going to get broken up. So you got to be able to take some chances on some guys that there's going to be question marks around. James Wiseman is a little bit different than Jordan Bell, the Oregon kid who was drafted the back end of the first round. When you draft somebody with draft capital to be your number 2 pick, you want him to play right away. And so if he's healthy and he's ready to go, you got to expect that that's going to be a big upgrade for that front court. And, on FanDuel, where his length and his size, I mean, he's just was a defensive. We saw him play 3 games at Memphis, but for the wingspan he has, for the size he has, feels like somebody who could really D it up and get you those 3 points for steals and blocks over on FanDuel.
Yeah, and before I talk about my take on Montrezl Harrell, I want you guys to all make sure you like, rate, and subscribe, whatever platform you're listening on. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to both me and Eric and the rest of the team at Awesemo.com. And if you leave a review on our podcast page, you'll be automatically entered to potentially win an Awesemo NBA annual pass worth $400. So that's a no-brainer. We're excited to have you on board. We hope you enjoyed this podcast so far. But on to Montrezl Harrell, who expressed some salt, quite a bit salty, about seeing Luke Kennard's extension on
Understatement.
Twitter earlier this evening. Yes. And Montrezl Harrell priced at 5,300 in the ultimate revenge spot after seeing the Kennard's extension. Talk to me about Montrezl Harrell. He's center on FanDuel while he's power forward eligible on DraftKings. Talk to me about Montrezl Harrell, and feel free to give me some of your thoughts on the center position as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to kind of see what his role is along with this team, how many minutes he's going to play alongside Anthony Davis and Marc Gasol, and kind of see how those 3 break up minutes at the 5. I think that's going to be an early season thing to get a grasp on, because if Montrezl Harrell sees minutes and he can produce the way he was pre-bubble, I mean, the guy won 6th man of the year playing like 3 games or 4 games right before the playoffs started, and then looked like garbage once the postseason came around. So he doesn't have his backcourt mate in Lou Williams to be running the pick and roll with. Schroeder kind of makes a lot of sense as somebody you can maybe fill in for that kind of a second unit deal, but Schroeder will be starting, I'm pretty sure. So it'll be interesting to see what his offensive productivity is with that team, but he's got a motor. He can accumulate a crazy amount of rebounds. That should cut into 80s rate a little bit for going forward. So that's going to be something also to be paying attention to early on. But you got to have interest there. I mean, he's still underpriced, I think, at 5,300 if he's going to be playing more minutes. He was playing under 30 minutes, I believe, at the beginning of the season last year, and so we're going to see a jump in that.
Oh, for sure. And I think we need to talk about the other side of on the Clippers and their signing, who I was a big fan of, in Serge Ibaka. He's power forward on FanDuel. He's priced at 5,500 there. He's center only on DraftKings, I believe. And Ibaka is priced at 5,200 there. I like the signing because they're going to need Ibaka to go up against Jokic if they face that matchup again in the playoffs. I like Ibaka quite a bit. I'm very interested to see how many extra minutes he gets without no Marcus Morris, who's been ruled out for tomorrow. Ibaka is another option that I'm going to be looking at, and I think he might come in at a kind of an ownership discount compared to some of the other centers. And FanDuel is a center position where you kind of just have to get it right on a 2-game slate because you just have one option there.
And they're all just so cheap too. I mean, with 5,100, sitting up top as Harrell, and having it only drop off the end. I mean, you don't really even have a high end center option to be spending on, so there's going to be some opportunities to make sure that you can go over the field on whoever your preference is. That's not going to be a problem.
For sure. For sure. And I want to talk about this DeAndre Jordan, Jared Allen situation. Jared Allen did not get a contract extension from the Nets. DeAndre Jordan is Katie and Kyrie's boy. That's why he's in Brooklyn. Brooklyn's gonna be coached by Steve Nash this year. I'm very excited to see what he can do there. And Mike D'Antoni's leading the assistant coach bench there. So DeAndre Jordan, I think, is a great option at 4,500 on FanDuel. I think he's going to come in with some ownership because he's going to be playing quite a bit of minutes. 5,600, I'm not that interested on DraftKings, but that 4,500 price tag on FanDuel seems quite nice to me.
Yeah, it kind of makes everything work for you too. He's gonna make the most sense for me as well. I think in that spot, 5,500 isn't over the moon, and we saw he kind of developed a three game in the bubble. He was stepping back and hitting threes in the playoffs. That Celtics series, he got pretty hot. He was kind of I wouldn't say the best player on the floor, but he was somebody that definitely shot above his head, in my opinion. And if that actually continues, like if it's a thing, you want to be on it early. You don't want to be late on your guys. If if he's somebody who can step out and hit some threes, that just adds to his value on DraftKings as well, even at the center position. But on FanDuel, we know what he can do on the defensive end. I keep reiterating it over and over, but 3 points for steals and blocks. He's somebody who can have a 4 or 5 block game in this spot.
Yeah, I think another center that we definitely should talk about is Ivica Zubac. Zubac is someone who looked great in the bubble, and probably Doc Rivers lost his job because he chose to play Harrell over Zubac in some critical minutes in the second round matchup against the Nuggets. And Zubac is someone who has an upside, and you know the upside really well personally. Talk to me about Zubac and your personal affection towards Ivica.
Well, I needed like a 50-plus point outing out of Zubac as my last player last January, and he helped me hit my first six-figure game. So he has a special place in my heart. I'm pretty sure my dog is going to be named Zubac, so that's just a flat-out call. It'll probably be the best dog in the entire world because I love Zubac so much. And the thing is, people wanted to talk about how great Harrell was on the defensive end and have him fit in pre-bubble, but you saw in the bubble, Zubac was the much better defender. He was able to actually be effective in the pick and roll. He wasn't getting completely murdered the way he was in previous years. And so he was able to stay out on the floor. And for Doc Rivers to be, relying on Harrell in that spot when he just didn't look right made absolutely no sense to me. So you don't have to ask me twice to play Zubac. I will just do it anyway. So
yeah, and before we talk about Wiseman and the rest of the centers available on the Warriors, there is a reason just to kind of like play roulette in the center position on FanDuel, just because they're all kind of decently good options in DeAndre Jordan, Harrell, Zubac. I like those options and just like mixing and matching your lineups with them. I have no issues. Mm-hmm. But going on to James Wiseman on DraftKings, he is priced at 4,900. Kevon Looney also priced at 5,200, and Marquise Chris is also there. So then I'm just a little hesitant on how Kerr's going to manage those minutes, just that first game. Kerr did indicate that Wiseman's going to start much sooner than later. And Wiseman in those 3 games averaged 19 and 11. He's a stud. He played at Memphis for Penny Hardaway before some college sanctions came down on him and the Memphis team. But that Memphis team was ranked number one because of him.
Yeah, my preference is him on FanDuel. 4,200. That seems like a spot where he could spike an upside a little bit more than over on DraftKings. 4,900 is a little hefty for a guy who, his main asset is going to be on the defensive end early on. I don't really know how developed his offensive game has gotten from the 3 games we saw him play in college. So FanDuel is the place to take a stand on him for me. But there's so many guys over on DraftKings that, some of those centers are just a little bit too expensive. Jared Allen, DeAndre Jordan are going to be in a timeshare, and they're both the second and third most expensive centers over there. So it makes a lot more sense to get your exposure to them over on FanDuel And if you prefer DeAndre Jordan, which I think you do, that's the guy to hammer out over there. Is there anybody else that you
Yeah,
kind of yeah?
that's my first look at it. I'm gonna have to look into some coaching notes of Steve Kerr,
Mm-hmm.
what he says leading up to the game. This
God,
is
you're
like we
sharp.
both said. This is our first look at our salary and everything and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. So uh, it's and make sure to stay tuned to the rest of the Awesemo.com programming shows. This is essentially a table setter for the strategy show, followed by Awesemo's game plan, his behind the scenes, behind the paywall show about what his thoughts are leading up to the slate. Make sure to use that promo code Caruso for $1 to watch it up until the 29th. And then there's the deeper dive in live before lock. Just very excited to have NBA back. NBA DFS is my favorite DFS sport. I have a ton of fun playing it. I love how it's every day and you kind of have a quick memory. You're quick to forget any late scratches, any mistakes while in your lineup building, unlike NFL where you get a dread on it for a whole week. And NBA is going to be great. I love the storylines. I love the drama behind it. It's going to be a ton of fun. Any final thoughts on the slate?
Guys, have fun. NBA's back. Any positive you can get in 2020 is a win, and getting that back on board is fantastic. But otherwise, it's so good doing a show with you, my dude. I mean, this is just a blast to be here, to be talking sports with you, to be talking NBA specifically. We're fortunate to be at the best spot in the industry, and I'm excited to deep dive into some of these slates a little bit more with you as we go. And I saw that we have a 13 gamer coming up on Wednesday, so we're gonna have a lot to say. So a lot more to say than we did today, and looking forward to that. But otherwise, just good luck, everybody.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a ton of fun. The aerial approach, a quick rundown of what we thought about the slate with pricing and whatnot. And Eric has something fun lined up for you guys. Eric, talk to him about the Slate Starter Listener League and what your plan is with that.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of go back and forth between DraftKings and FanDuel and do a little playing around with it. But let's get a listener league going. We'll have a description in the description box. That's a good place for it. So we're going to have a little deal where you can sign up for the DraftKings Listener League. It's going to be 20-man, $1. We're starting small. We want to build that thing up as we go, but it's a good opportunity to see kind of what we're putting into our lineups, what our thinking is for some of these short field slates, and we'll just get a little bit of feedback, go back and forth between DraftKings and FanDuel, but just to have some fun with it and reach out to you guys a little bit.
Yeah, that's something that we hope that we can grow throughout the year, and we'll appreciate your support in that as well. And hopefully it gets big enough where we can potentially hand out some Awesemo memberships as well. So that's something that you should take advantage. We're giving away $1,000 Awesemo Plus Platinum Pass. And this Platinum Pass will cover all sports across the board. Get access to all the tools powered by Alex Baker. Awesemo puts in all the work behind these tools, and you'll get an access for the whole year. It's $1,000 value. All you got to do is follow Awesemo_com, check out the pin tweet, and also follow Awesemo NBA. You should already be following Awesemo NBA just because we'll be retweeting news from beat reporters, trying to consolidate your work for you all on that Twitter feed as well for all things NBA. And make sure to check out that giveaway. It's a no-brainer just to enter. All you have to do is guess who will have more points tomorrow, LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard. And that's all you got to do. Reply to the tweet with your option, and we'll pick a lucky winner with the right answer come the following morning. Outside of that, don't forget about Caruso. Good luck tomorrow, and we hope someone takes on the Millie. And hit us up with any questions. You can follow me at Rinpack, and Eric, what's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle, at Eric Lindquist. That'll be easy enough. LINDQUIST.
And check us out there. You can follow me at Rinpack. That's RYNPAK. Hit us up with any questions, and we'll catch you tomorrow.
Good luck, everybody.